our annual IPENZ Transportation Group Auckland branch event. This is the fourth year that we've run the IPENZ debate, and it's always a very fun and entertaining evening. Quick health and safety. Toilets are straight out in the foyer. You've probably found them already. If there is an emergency, please follow the exit signs, and the nearest outdoor exit is just around the corner to the right. Hopefully none of that is needed, and we should have a very entertaining evening. The IPENZ Transportation Group and Auckland IPENZ branch is sponsoring tonight's event, and it should be very entertaining. Our MC this evening is Patrick Reynolds. He's a photographer, and he's also writes for the Transport blog. In front of you, you will have some blurbs about the various speakers that we have tonight, so you can give them an insight into who you're actually listening to. I will pass on to Patrick now to run the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Right. Okay, well, I'm meant to introduce these teams, I believe. We have, on the affirmative team, we have Pippa Coon, who is apparently a recovering corporate lawyer and works for something called a superset. Other than that, various stuff about gardens and such. David Mitchell has worked for various engineering companies for very precise lengths of time, like 8.5 years. These companies have letters and numbers in their name. This is significant. Back to the affirmative team. Matt Hinton likes a beer. Rachel Bluden is a country Matt. So that's another thing. And again, more companies with letters. Various sort of alphabet soup companies. The board knows what they do. And Darren Davis. The sainted Darren Davis. Please, saving us all. So we don't say any more than that. Now, John Mole. The Tangata Whenua of the big island in the north is here to represent Moncton at its hottest. That's correct. Okay, so we need to start with, we're starting with the affirmative. Perfect, I presume? Hopefully.
I'll give it a go.
You'll give it a go, okay. Yes. The mooters, of course, the cars are so last century. We know what is this century, it's these things, right? Yes. Last century, some of you may have got laid on account of having a car. My teenage children cannot believe that anyone ever got laid until they had one of these. So it's an open and shut. Let's just see what the teams have to say.
Thank you, Patrick. I think you've really just summed up the debate. The affirmative team. And thank you also to IPENZ for having me along to the debate tonight. I was very surprised to be invited back after the showdown of 2011. I think there might have been a mix-up of Pippas, but I'm very delighted to be here to kick things off for the affirmative team. I'm particularly delighted because I get to take a politician's approach to this debate. I front and I sound like I know what I'm talking about, and all my knowledge has come from transport law. And I let it rip a bit at the opposition, but hand over to the guys in my team to do the work for the affirmative team. Now, Matt and Darren are truly the heavy lifters of this debate, and thank goodness I'm going to introduce them because, to be honest, Patrick did a pretty crap job with the introductions. So, well, Darren, as you probably know, is from the alien empire known as Auckland Transport.
The dark side.
I'm about to say that, the dark side. And he works as a PT nerd, a self-proclaimed PT nerd for the dark side. And I see looking out there's a few of you from AT tonight. And hiding there, but I know you're here. And you've been given a bit of time off maybe from your scheming and plotting about how to make the car the king of the road. Kia ora. But remember, Darren is your man when it comes to vote time regardless of what he says. And between Matt and Darren, they've really got every statistic and fact covered about transport. They are on the pulse of future trends. Do not be fooled by appearances. In fact, we are all completely, I mean all in terms of the affirmative team. Thank goodness you didn't wear your hat today, Patrick. Because we are in fact all on the trend and have left the last century behind. We are living the 21st century dream and have already unshackled ourselves from car dependency in our daily lives. We intend to convince you that the car was an aberration of the last century. Now I can see the room is full of Gen Y. Would I be right? Born after 1982? Of course you're here. There was free food and drink. Yes, I think you're here. Rachel, I'm sure you're representing Gen Y here tonight. Now it is you, Gen Yers, together with millennials, and I hope there's no millennials because I think that will put you underage for the drinks, but who will shape the century. You are already voting with your hot cards and, as Patrick said, with your phones, with your smartphones. Why would you want the eroding cost of congestion that has been forced on us from last century? We join you, Gen Y, in wanting cities with choice, freedom, bike lanes, Wi-Fi, and people watching opportunities. How last century is the view from the car? Last century was the traffic engineer's wet dream of car domination. We've been conned by the engineering profession to back the car because, like coal and nicotine, there's money in it. Now, not surprising, the only engineers tonight are with the negative team. 2 engineers who are here to defend their profession because you look like you need defending. I just can't quite figure out why John Moreau is on the negative team. He's walked in off the set of Portlandia and he's come on his bike, if he's really honest. Yes.
Oh, he drove both his cars.
But don't be sucked in by the accent. He is here to sell you the failed American dream. The dream that is so last century. It's a beast, sick, dystopian. A dream of a nation going nowhere fast. Now, sure, cars are not going to disappear totally and will always be part of the transport mix. But the private car is destined to go the way of a DVD player. A world-class transport system designed for this century looks like Singapore, where only 12% of the population actually owns a car. Now, those scandos, any scandos in the room? They're onto it. In Helsinki recently, they've announced plans to transform the existing public transport network into a comprehensive point-to-point mobility on-demand system that will do away with private cars. In this century, as the affirmative teams can convince you, we're talking about mobility and people. Now, yes, I know the positive team are going to say, oh, but it's all about electronic cars. It's all about driverless cars. Cars are with us. Now, thanking you kindly in advance, negative team, for trying that one on as in terms of what's going to be fundamental to the 21st century. But you know something's up when climate change denier and suburbanist Dick Quacks, anyone here from Howard? Sorry, he is your representative. Now he has seen future driverless cars. Only last night on his Facebook, he posted an article, I kid you not, "Don't fear driverless cars" was the name of the article. As well as asking, why am I friends with Dick Quacks on Facebook? There is a lot to fear. Driving alone, even in a driverless car, doesn't protect us from congestion, environmental impacts or energy use. In fact, driverless cars can make the sprawl worse. Now, worst of all with driverless cars. Now, I know you guys are going to go into this line of thinking the whole driverless car thing. That's just, you've got to be open. But this is another way that we're going to give ourselves over to the surveillance state. You know, drivers can't be tracked everywhere. I'm with .com on this one. I'll be voting with Internet Mana on the strength of their policy to ban driverless cars. So just to sum up why the car is so last century. Jerry Brownlee, Minister for doors of national significance, a man determined to make cars relevant so he can justify his 3 billion bonds obsession. Now, as Principal Bob, name drop, recently pointed out, it just doesn't make sense for Brownlee to celebrate people driving more as a sign of economic recovery. In this century, the money is on creating spaces for people and driving less. In this century, it is good for business to back bike lanes. Now, I would like to just end the introductions. That was all an introduction, really, wasn't it? By asking a simple question of the audience. Now, I'm not really big on audience participation, obviously. Yeah. But I really do have to ask this question of you all tonight. Now, how many of you here travelled by car? And hands up, you travelled here tonight. What would you say? 25%?
One or two.
Positions? One or two. Now, how many of you actually came in an electric car? Electric car? When I tell you, you are so on trend. Thank you. I rest my case for the affirmative team. The car is so last century.
Now for the negative. Yep.
I'm not going to stand outside. I'm going to open this up over here. Try and look very good. Right, well, firstly, a very warm welcome to all the forward-thinking students, of course, of the future of our industry, and all the fine, upstanding professionals that have joined us tonight. Oh, and their family, of course. So apparently the car is so last century. After all, who would possibly want to go from one place to another in style and comfort, efficiently and safely? What an utterly preposterous notion. I'm sure the affirmative team will say, use public transport, walk, cycle, or if you work for AT or council, take your own personal chauffeur shopping. Now let's for a minute build a history of the passenger transporting vehicle. Now these devices have changed markedly in the last century and in the last millennium. The original passenger transporting vehicles weren't even called cars. They were called horses and elephants and donkeys. And yet, let's think about what these early versions of the car actually included. Comfortable seating, power steering, air conditioning, and most importantly, the ability to go where you want it, when you want it. This personal transportation freedom has served mankind well for centuries. As an example, did you ever hear of a Roman engineer being late for a resource consent meeting to build another aqueduct? I think not. And when man recognised that the family had to ride along, he adapted a wheeled vehicle to supplement the horse, a wagon. That is a serious leap forward in transportation. Unfortunately, the 17th century saw a severe decline in transport freedom with the first horse-drawn public bus route. Much like the Wynyard Quarter tram, it took 3 hours to do a 500-metre loop. People soon realised their life expectancy was simply not long enough to wait for the next one to come along. So when finally the internal combustion engine came along, the age of the car was truly born. But in reality, what has fundamentally changed for personal transportation from the previous 1,000 years or so? Absolutely nothing. People still own their very own personal transportation vehicle and can still go wherever they want in style and comfort. People fell in love with their cars. Even American presidents like John F. Kennedy were prepared to throw themselves in front of a bullet to protect their beloved automobile. But do people really love cars that much? Well, to quote a great modern philosopher, Richard Hammond from Top Gear, you can stick a BMW badge on a dead cat and people will still buy it. That is the universal power of the mighty car. There are, of course, other transport choices. Buses, giant fume-belching monolithic steel boxes with as much style and grace as Jerry Brownlee running past airport security to catch his flight. How, though, will a bus help you on Saturday morning when you've got 3 kids playing 3 different sports in 3 different directions? No PT system can ever hope to provide enough flexibility to replace the car. Then there's walking and cycling. How appealing cycling is in the middle of winter. Actually, Carlin, how are the ribs of the collarbone now? Anyway, enough said about the noises. And even the way we structure our cities send mixed messages. Firstly, we intensify the city. We go and build 30,000 new homes a year from Helensville to Hunua. Good luck getting to the central city on your bike to be at work at 8:30 in the morning from Helensville. But in a car, warm as toast, listening to your Bon Jovi or Dolly Parton, nice mocha latte in the cup holder next to you, putting on your makeup and texting frantically as you drive down the motorway. Where exactly is the downside? And as cars learn to drive themselves, they'll become more and more like public transport anyway. If you're not outside your home at exactly 7:30 in the morning, you might find your Toyota starter has already left for work without you. Even though your smartphone app will say that it won't be along for another 10 minutes. Now don't get me wrong. There's little doubt that the way we power our cars has to change. Petrol is so last century. But solar, hydrogen, self-generated wind power from local government politicians. Thought I'd buy an engineering course. But for those who've seen movies like Minority Report or I, Robot, who have marvelled at Harry Potter's flying car, or for those as old as me who have watched the Jetsons cartoons, would know that the car is going to be the future. And even better, according to the movies, they'll soon be able to transform themselves into helpful, intelligent robots that will save the world in their spare time. Just another bonus. Now I know that such an intelligent and attractive audience like you will appreciate that we live in an age of personal freedom and expression. When Gen Y and whoever the next generation is that follows them demand everything yesterday and believe that the world revolves around them, the car is the only way to have that freedom, that instantaneous self-gratification, that personal expression. The affirmative team will no doubt tell you that buses can take you wherever you want, but it's really only where Big Brother wants you to go. Now, without wanting to sound like an internet mama party slogan, a quote from Thomas Jefferson says, "A government big enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take everything you have." That's unless you're a 6'5" German with 30 matching black outfits in your wardrobe. The final question is, are you strong enough to resist the forces of transport lethargy as it tries to drain the life out of every single one of you? I say no to tyranny and oppression. And yes, to freedom and personal self-expression. So live, love, and be free in your car of the future.
Well, Mark, you wrote your speech. You can respond to the member from my right.
That's why we're on the right wing.
Our team acknowledges that the 20th century was indeed about cars. It was about travelling further and faster than before. It was about access, mobility, and taking control. It was about building roads and motorways. It was about displaying material wealth. the richer you were, the more cars you had. The more cars you had, the richer you were. It was then about congestion. It was then about dependency and lack of choice. Losing control and entrapment. But like a bad marriage. Our argument proposes that the 21st century was about people. It's about regaining control and enjoying space made by people for people. It's about getting a divorce. Our very own strategic direction demands that Auckland will be the world's most livable city. And how do we achieve this lofty goal? By building more space for cars, by trying to cram more cars into the city centre, or by focusing on building space for people to use and enjoy. And who would you do to trust this? Traffic engineers? Urban designers and planners? It's an open question. Our argument says that the 20th century was simply an anomaly whereby cars deemed king. History was about people and dinosaurs. Actually, mainly about dinosaurs. But along came the people. People that looked a bit like the opposing team. Especially Cave Dave here. And John, he doesn't look a bit like a mathematician. Some would say he'd make a great maths debater. Sorry, I had to bring that one out for my third film debate. We've had more than 200,000 years of people developing, socialising, inventing and building space for people. Then came along the 20th century. The dinosaurs returned and called themselves the National Road Tour. They built our roads and motorways and cars took over. But now we can see the fault of our ways. Car is no longer king, it can no longer rule our lives. I can also acknowledge that we're not quite there yet. But the 21st century is only 14 years old, or 15, if I add it up properly. They can't vote, or drink, or smoke, or have sex. But it only just started high school. It's got a long way to go. It only knows the basics. It still has to go to university. There it will refocus and learn. Probably have too much fun, take up smoking, drink, and have too much sex. But eventually the 21st century will be qualified and get a good job. And that job will be to refocus the 21st century on people. Our team... Should I read that again? Sorry, John. They say that the cars will give us freedom and choice. We acknowledge this is so if you live in Greenland. How much freedom and choice do you have sitting in a car in the same place in Auckland's motorways for 30 minutes a day? This equates to sitting in a steel box 24 hours a day for 9 months. Like giving birth, kind of. They say that improvements in vehicle technology will give us driverless cars. So we could Google driverless vehicles. People travelling in bunches in cars are called congestion. People travelling in bunches in autonomous cars is still called congestion. People travelling in bunches on cycles is called a peloton. Some would say an accident waiting to happen. Pedestrians travelling in bunches is called a pub crawl. What would you rather do? They said that cars are about style and comfort, that people love cars. Who here has had sex with a car? Actually, to take that further, who here has had sex in a car? Show of hands, please. Don't be shy. Who here has had sex in a car with another person? Still no shows of hands? Who here has had sex in a car while it's moving? Who here has had sex on a car? Who here has had sex on a car while it's moving? Well, the point being is that cars can be very sexy, but not when they're being used as a car. Who here are the traffic engineers in the audience?
As well.
I got that right.
Who here had sex in a car in the last century? Who here had sex in a car this century? The point is proven. So, I reaffirm this thing that the last century was about cars. This century has to be about people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for your fantastic. Thank you, man. Showing that you ran through every prerequisite with sex and cars. Sadly, a lacking amount of insults will be that can be worked on for both things. I'd like to see more insults. And now I think we need to hand over to John. No? Shocker. Look at that. Really? John, why are you sitting in the middle? Okay, Rachel. Then a row.
Thank you. So I had planned to rebut a few things that the other team said, but I don't think I need to be honest. I couldn't come up with anything. So I'll just keep going, and I do have maybe a few sex jokes, but I think they'll be better than what Matt came up with. Here we go. If you have read the bios in front of you, I'm not sure if you have, I'm from the Waikato, so I'm a country girl, and I grew up on the outskirts of Cambridge. And for most of you in the room who have lived in Auckland your whole life, this might be a really foreign concept for you, but I had a driveway that was more than 1 kilometre long. So, if we want to take our rubbish out, we had to get the car to take our rubbish to the end of the driveway. We had horse studs all around us, no shops, no urban sprawl, it was just full-on country. So, I went to school in Cambridge as well, which was not too far away, but there was a little hip rural school down the road, not worth going to, but because it was marginally closer than the one in Cambridge, I couldn't get on the public school bus. So what do? There's no public transport in Cambridge. Will there ever be public transport in our small rural towns? So what did I do? My parents drove me to school. I could have cycled, but would have taken me hours to get there. And who wants to cycle on our country roads anyway? Most of them are windy, narrow. You have the chance of falling into a big stormwater ditch on your side. Most people treat the 100k speed limit as a target, not a limit. So there's no way my mum would ever let me cycle to school. I wouldn't let my children cycle to school if I lived in the country either. So what are the options? I got my driver's license when I was 16 and a half, my full license, drove myself. Before that, my mum drove me everywhere. So according to the last census, 22% of us live in a rural area or a minor urban area. So it's a large amount of our population. There's no public transport in any of these areas. And even though we are more and more moving to Auckland, as Auckland sucks us all in with the jobs, there's going to be always a rural population because agriculture is so huge in New Zealand. So what do we do for those people living rurally? How will people get to the shops or to school? How will that bored housewife stuck in the middle of nowhere because she had the unfortunate incident of falling in love with a farmer get to town? She's bored, she's on a farm, she wants to go play bridge with her girlfriends. How will she get there without her car? How will she buy her groceries and lug them around for her family? And what about the teenagers like me growing up in Cambridge? How will we ever get dates if our date can't even pick us up and take us somewhere? So, just following on that, we're a spread out country.
So why don't you put your hand up when I ask the question?
As I said, not worth rebutting. So, we only have 4.4 million people in our whole entire country. You compare this to Tokyo or London, where there's 13.4 and 8.4 million people just living in that one city alone. We don't have the volume of people, and we're much more spread out in these countries to provide any sort of public transport. Not to mention we have a very unique geography in New Zealand. We have lots of large mountain ranges, lots of gullies, lots of rivers, and it makes any kind of public transport just economically unviable. So unless we all cordon ourselves off in little areas around New Zealand, like who's seen that TV show Gloria Vale on TV at the moment? We're going to be like that, marrying each other in our little communities, probably someone who's our cousin. It's just not good. So, just going in another direction, we know that men love their cars, and that's great for all the ladies out there, because while the men are tinkering in the garage on their cars, we can go shop. And also, cars are expensive, so we can make a deal with our partners. If you want to spend money on expensive car parts, I'm going to spend the same amount on clothes. So, they didn't have that to do, we wouldn't see our girlfriends, we wouldn't shop. And it's proven fact that women are more attracted to a man with a nice car. And a Welsh university has done studies to prove this even. And according to their findings, women are far more attracted to a man sitting in a Porsche. So all you men out there, if you think of our new car, Porsche, that's the one woman like. There's no cars. We'll be in danger of the rate of divorce skyrocketing because we no longer find our partners attractive. For a starter, you have to get on the City Link bus to take your partner to your next date. And we'd all have to wear our jeans and our sneakers because the bus stop will be a kilometre down the road. And I mean, everyone's got to agree with me, sneens, not attractive. Also, all the single people out there, how are you going to find a partner if you can't even take them on a date in a nice car? Who's heard of a first date catching the bus or riding tandem on the back of his bike? The risk of having a no first date kiss is a lot higher, I think, if he's not sitting in a nice car. So, just to finish off, as a professional woman living in the city, I think if I didn't have my car, I would struggle. I mean, if I had to cycle, this hair would not look like it does today. And the affirmative team might say, what about all the congestion and the traffic problems? Well, I say that's awesome. How else am I going to get my makeup done in the morning if I'm not stationary in a queue? Also, with technology advances, anyway, my car's going to be electric, it's going to turn off when I'm stationary anyway, so I'm not affecting the environment. Sitting in a car in traffic has the opposite effect to what most people argue. It gives me a moment in the morning to wake up, drink my coffee, sing along to my songs, rock out some Justin Bieber or Tay-Tay in the morning, and that can improve your confidence. It is a known fact that if you sing on a bus and people boo you, it's not going to boost your confidence. So you may argue that it's unsafe to do most of these things while driving, and I would agree with you. But cars are getting safer, and soon I'll be able to sit back, my car will drive me to work, do my hair, paint my nails, and I'll have far more time in my day to do other things. So just to wrap up, I'll paint you a picture of New Zealand. This is what New Zealand would look like with no cars. Our rural areas would be all segregated off, we'd all be forced to marry our cousins. Not good. Divorce rates in cities like Auckland would skyrocket because we wouldn't be attracted to our partners anymore. People who are single wouldn't get any dates. And you'd have low self-esteem and be super stressed because you'd have to use public transport to get home. Does that sound like a good picture to you? No, I don't think so. So go the car.
Just explain why the National Party is road building. That's very good for that. Was it 22? 22, yeah. That's not a important number. We've got a book number for engineers. Darren, I'm going for a massive book for a month.
Thanks for coming along this evening and choosing to share this experience with us. It's been real, well for me at least, hopefully for you. Very interesting, and I'm here in the role of number 3 to rebut some of the key points made by the other teams. Should I really refer to that? Well, Rachel, I've really just got one message for you. I'm going to buy you a bus ticket to Cambridge. I mean, you really missing it, and I'm sure you'll just feel really
Doesn't go to my house.
We'll make a special thing. I'm that kind of person. I'm just wonderful. So, for the 10% of the population, and that number is declining, that live in rural New Zealand, cars are very important, are the lifeblood of it. 90% of us, though, in New Zealand live in cities. They live in large cities by and large. So this city, which has a third of the population of New Zealand, and so what might apply in a rural context where apparently, next asked me to say, this country people marry their cousins anyway. Really quite a bit different. I'm just going to start off and I'm going to sort of take a few points, and I really like the first speaker's point about the car as the follower on this really developing mobility chain that started from the horse, and then kind of we discovered wheels and all of this sort of thing, and that the car is just a logical succession from that. The unfortunate fact of life is none of those precursor modes were as environmentally destructive as the car. They didn't spew out multiple different forms of emissions. They didn't contribute to the warming of our planet, which could immeasurably change life on the planet. So, from that point of view, I don't see the logical connection between the two. I particularly like the reference to an elephant, and I thought, an elephant is a good part of a mobility chain, and it works very well in India. And in fact, if you go to the Indian Railways website, they'll give you a lot of advice on what to do when you take your elephant with you on the train, for example. And that's a really good example of trip linking and about a mobility chain, like I was referring to in Helsinki. And this is the way of the future, that we're blending all sorts of different ways of travelling. We're moving away from car dependency to a really great range of choices, and that we can customise those choices to meet the particular needs of our of what we need without being chained to the costs of car ownership. Just want to, go through a few of the other points. I accept the luxury and style and all of those things about the car, and I do enjoy those in my occasional trips and see things, and I have been known to indulge in that particular vice. I don't think anybody else know about that because we really ruined my street cred. I'm not being filmed, am I, by the way? So yes, fairly acknowledged, but we spend our lives driving in urban contexts and often stressful conditions. We stand at the ramp signal and we proceeded like on Noah's Ark, 2 by 2 down the on-ramp. I mean, this is not really a delightful experience. Then we kind of barge our way into the traffic somehow. We seem to have forgotten that there's a little stick on the car that indicates when you're wanting to merge in, but that's apparently optional in New Zealand. So the car really becomes a gilded prison. So we can just upgrade the quality of the prison we spend in, and the environment while we're trapped there for those bits of dead time in our lives. And remember that our life is finite, and that time you spend in your car is literally dead time. It's not time you're going to get back when you die because you made bad modal choices when you were alive. So you're just not getting that back. You really got to think about that. Whereas using public transport, and walking, they both give you options to do other things while you're there. Legally do other things, such as text and catch up on Facebook and like all your friends on Instagram and hope they like you back because I'm desperately insecure. So, what we're talking about is an evolution from a generation of the past, addicted to their cars and addicted to a car-based lifestyle, to a generation of a future with a rich range of mobility choices. And, we think about, when we travel, do we travel overseas and, as car-loving people, do we visit, great car infrastructure? Do we, go to the motorway overpass and view the harmonious flow of the traffic below? Really, what we do? No, what we do is we seek out really great public spaces where people are because we want to be with people because we're a social species. And so our car-based invention of that is called the shopping mall. And the shopping mall is the public piazza for the auto-dependent. And it's for the sort of city where you have to drive for miles to get away from traffic. So you get away, you get to the mall and you're in the sea of asphalt. It sort of looks like an ocean from space, but it's a bit of a black colour rather than a blue colour, and there aren't any crashing waves. And then you go into this public piazza, which is completely car-free. I mean, isn't that a kind of absurd contradiction? So the mall, it kind of acts as a pseudo-public space. Yeah, I mean, we don't go overseas to visit sprawl. We go overseas, to visit dense urban spaces and spaces with life. And I'm just going to talk about one thing. And that was the day that I gave up my car, and that was the day I got my freedom back. That was the day I got my freedom back to walk around the city and to actually see what was going on at eye level in our city, and to discover all sorts of things that I'd never seen before. They were right there in plain view, but I never saw them until I took the time to do that. And so that's given me really great mobility. And what Auckland Transport is doing, taking my employer here and my great boss sitting up there, is that the new network is going to deliver a vastly increasing So remember that transport frequency is freedom. And I will end on one quote. Cars chew money and make you fat. They really do. If you think about walking and biking, they save you money and they make you thin. So should you rather be fat or thin? Okay, you can unmangle for me if I can.
Bikes run on fat and save you money.
Okay, well, it was near enough.
Thank you for that lesson in evolution. Oh,
Speaking of evolution.
Thanks for taking to a higher plane now.
Yeah, I don't know how many people have read their bio, but one important item that was left out of that was, and it might come as a shock to many of you, because we don't really know Americans don't have passports, but I'm actually American. And let me just slow down and pronounce my U's correctly in my slag drawl. Just let that sink in. I'm American. American, as we call it. And just like the number of proper political parties the country should have, I've got two main points for you. And I'm going to refute the nonsense that the opposing team has given. Now, I'm also going to ask you to, I'm just going to ask you to do a little audience participation. Right? Audience participation. Do we like that? Because you're the impartial audience, you're the clap-o-meter, you're what's going to decide who wins here. And I ask you to participate interactively in this smackdown of reason. So any sort of short burst or an amen or whatever, if you feel moved, please do it. So before I get to my 2 points, I want to congratulate my teammates for elegantly throwing down the gauntlet. Not in small part by referencing 2 American presidents, by referencing the Jetsons, I believe, and Bon Jovi. And just in case our points haven't sunk in, I again have 2 points. So point number 1. The car drives us back to our values. It's an extension of our personalities. It's an expression of ourselves. It's an expression of our values. So sure, you've got some fancy numbers and you're talking about new networks and all that stuff, but I've got, those facts are one thing. On the affirmative side, we've got guts. And our guts tell us what's right. And I think it's time for applause. Cars are about freedom. We've heard it from the other side. Cars are about freedom. I think I heard that from almost every single one of you. That there's some element of freedom and mobility in cars are about freedom. So it's no stretch to say that Americans invented freedom. freedom that calls many of us to the open road, which is basically any time between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., because we've done such a wickedly good job of building up our motorway network. Another value that we relentlessly promote as a sort of a service to humanity is control. I think the old American saying goes, if you don't like someone else being in control, then just bomb the piss out of them. Driving a car gives you a massive control trip. It's delicious. And then there's elegance. Go ahead and cycle up College Hill after, in the rain, after bloody Herne Bay Audi goes by you, and tell me how elegant you feel by comparison. Where's my boo sign? You get the picture. Yeah, boo. Boo. Why not rock your frock in the car? Finally, there's sharing, another value. Well, actually, I'm kind of kidding about that one. We hate sharing in America. Sharing's for constrained, the powerless, the dull PT user. Sharing's for Cuba. So, is there a limit to freedom, you ask? Some might argue that yes, there is. Just like road space, freedom is a limited resource, and why not just hog it? It's like taking over all the bus lanes in Auckland, if we had them. But a limit to freedom, no, my friends, freedom is not limited, it's not constrained. The car, almost like anything else on the planet, is contrary to what the affirmative team has been blathering about, delivers freedom, control, and elegance to the masses. There are makes and models to fit all budgets, and the only limit to freedom is how quickly the assembly lines can pump them out. So my second point, and speaking of assembly lines, progress. My second point is about the progress that we have made in America. As important as freedom is our insatiable appetite for progress, we invented that one too. I believe one of the world's greatest heroes was Henry Ford. And before it put everyone out of work, the humble assembly line created a ton of jobs, unimaginable mobility, and unlocked people from the heavy chains of poverty, much contrary to what those folks are telling you. It really changed the world forever. And there are no poor people in the States. So I know the car has taken a lot of heat from the affirmative side of this debate. Let me acknowledge that the values argument is actually irrefutable. Our side can concede that there's some room for improvement, for progress in cars. But the other side needs to give a little bit too. And not, as our transport minister says, just oppose progress and want us to return to dirt tracks and Morse cards. I mean, progress is not trains, then cars, then trains. Progress is trains, then cars, then future cars. So it's not just improvements, it's innovation. My colleagues have made some references to this future, which has been very helpful for me, and I'll briefly elaborate. So did anybody see Tony Seba's Auckland Conversation presentation this past month? I mean, that was, applause please. That was amazing. That was amazing. Even just the Herald today, it was John Gottler, the VP of the Traffic Institute, talking about the end of traffic lights. That was just awesome. So strap on your jetpack. This is mind-blowing stuff, and it's all about driverless cars, baby. You totally guessed it. Yeah. So not only that, but all the kit you need to press a button on your phone to hop in, to cruise lazily to your destination faster than you can say. Isn't this basically the same thing as a functional PT network, but a lot costlier? I guess you could probably get a return car trip in too, because that's a hell of a long sentence. So this kind of progress removes virtually all the negative externalities that the affirmative team seems to associate with the automobile. Clean fuels, happy environment, declining electric vehicle costs, better market penetration and widespread adoption, sensor technology, massive gains in safety. Of course, a manual switch would be helpful and essential to kind of switch into that control and freedom, but can you imagine the unimaginable convenience with driverless cars and rides on demand? And Nissan is said to have one available by 2018. So just a few points before I close that I just picked up from the other team. I think it was Pippa who said, sounds like she knows what she's talking about. I thought that was kind of interesting. Doesn't give me a lot of confidence in what she's talking about. She said, sure, cars will not disappear totally. I think that basically means we've won. Can we go home now? Matt Debater, something about regaining control, about people and dinosaurs, something about adolescence, and some sort of Dr. Seussian thing about sex on par. And hat in the hat or something. And my wife objects to that kind of language right here. And Darren, I believe I'm going to chuck you on the floor. Something about country people marrying cousins anyway. Can my wife raise her hand and just show our genetic differentiation? I grew up in the country, so there we go. I think some acceptance of luxury and style. A prison, just think of the PT prison that you put yourself in every single day. You also mentioned that you wanted your freedom back. When you gave up your car, you got your freedom back. But you're desperately insecure. So besides wanting to I feel like I should just lend you my car keys someday. So in summary, I'd like to say that car trips tap into our basic human needs. They free us of our true full potential. It's about love, really. It's about a love for freedom, it's about a love for progress, and therefore for cars. And while cars are just about perfect, or at least they will be soon, our side does acknowledge that there are a few other ways of getting around, maybe not optimal at this point. We'll also acknowledge, and can we all acknowledge, that there's a wave of exciting technological progress. This progress will not only eliminate all negative impacts and keep cars relevant and useful, but will actually go a fair way to improve our lives and the lives of our car-loving, freedom-loving children and the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, John. You reminded me of that great man who once said, "How did our oil get on the very desert?" Right, I think we come to the pointy end of the evening where you, the public, are going to decide who won. Now we have a very fair and balanced, as we say on Fox News, way of working this out. So the people who believe that the affirmative team have the most persuasive case, you do nothing. You just sit. Okay? Now all of you people who think these people are right, you have to stand up. Stand up and be counted. Oh! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. Looks like a deer. We'll call that a deer.
We're calling it a DP, shall we?
I'm not an engineer. I can't tell. I think only everyone stood up.
Only you.
He's my boss, I have to. Thank you very, very much for coming along tonight. Our speakers have been fantastic and our MC Patrick, so please join me in thanking them very much. Our winning team, the negative team, David, John and Rachel, thank you very much for taking the time. They put a lot of effort into preparing this and strategizing over a few beers on a Friday afternoon. Thank you very, very much. And our affirmative team, Pippa, Matt and Darren, which is where my true heart lies. Thank you very much.